Hi, we're running a bit late. What time is it? It's 6:08, so it's nearly 10 past 6. We're going a bit late, but it's okay. It's okay. We're fine. How is everybody doing? The week is coming along well. Tomorrow is Friday. Friday in December, the first Friday in December. It's exciting times, with Christmas coming around, despite COVID. What's going on with COVID? The Omicron variant. What a name. Okay, let me put this phone away. Just check one thing, because usually I get a notification saying it's on YouTube or alright, we look good. And of course I have people looking at it, Mano and Shiro's. Thanks Mano, see, he's on the ball. There you go. I gotta come play a game pool at the restaurant. Not today, maybe tomorrow. Okay guys, so it's a fun day, right? It's life is fun, man. You gotta make it. No matter what you're going through, listen, no matter what you're going through in life, you gotta make it. You make life, right? And I keep saying that, and we make life. Yes, we gotta deal with stuff like the world is not perfect. We're not perfect. Our own human nature has a lot of stuff we gotta deal with, right? But you gotta make it you gotta design your life, which is what we talk about, design your life and alter your future in a way that you have that peace, that joy, that flowingness, you know what I mean? No matter what is going through, a lot of people freak out and get plunged into anxiety and despair. We did, I think, at least 2 or 3 shows before talking about the despair of the human spirit, the human, not even the spirit, the soul, because remember the soul is different from the spirit. That's our belief, right? We are made up of body, soul, and spirit, and the soul is plunged in darkness in human nature as it is on the earth right now. Well, human beings on the earth, I believe this is one thing we take into consideration, a factor in designing our life, in altering the future, and then living for our potential. That the soul is encased in a kind of darkness, and a kind of unconsciousness might be the best way to say it. And we gotta bring enlightenment. We gotta enlighten ourselves, right? Which is one reason I wake up in the morning and I do a lot of reading and I write a couple thousand words a day. I aim for 3,000. Most times I get that. So I have over 1 million words sitting on my computer that I might never publish half of them, but most of them are coming out in different versions of our technology, Sims book and different things. But anyway, I don't want to take up the day-to-day ranting. I want to talk about something very, very specific. As you know, this month, if you listen to the show yesterday, this month we're talking about the future. We want to really engage you and ourselves, because we do go into research and stuff about what is coming tomorrow, what is coming in 2022 and 2023 and 2025. We want to prepare ourselves, because this is the thing about life, right? You gotta live for a purpose, so you live intentionally. You gotta find your purpose, you gotta find your vision, your mission. Once you find that purpose and you identify it, which is what we help you with. We have a whole course on it, a whole module on developing, what we call it is your message, right? What is your message to mankind? What is your message to the world? What is your message to humanity? And your message is wrapped up in your passion and your purpose. And I know a lot of people don't really, haven't really, especially younger people, but a lot of older people as well, astonishingly, haven't figured out their purpose, their mission, their message. What is my message to the world? What am I really saying to humanity? A lot of people don't know. So we help you, we walk you through that process. But anyway, what I want to say is, life you must have a purpose. We can't drift. We can't just drift. We have to engage the world and the people around us. Engage ourselves, right? We gotta look at ourselves and say, what is my purpose? Look ourselves in the mirror and say, what is my purpose? What am I here to do? Right? What did God, if we believe that, which I do, what did God create us for? If we're evolving and we believe in evolution, what's the purpose of it? And because science kind of went into this thing of evolution, they teach it in school in science and biology and stuff, it plunged a lot of people into despair, because if you think you have no purpose, we're thinking conscious beings. We're conscious beings. And if we believe we are conscious of everything that goes on, every pain we feel, every pleasure we feel, everything that we go through, every thought that we have, every word that we say, everything that goes on around us, we're conscious of it. And if we believe all that is purposeless, then we're just evolving from monkeys into some other being, or there's a religion, I don't remember, not Islam, maybe Hinduism, that believes in reincarnation. So I could end up being a rat or some animal or some bird or something after I die, right? That, to me, that plunges, if I were to live with that mentality, that psyche, then I'd plunge into, even for the despair that is normal for the average human being. Every human being is going through despair. A lot of people say they are depressed and they have anxiety issues and mental health issues and stuff. Trust me, every human being goes through that. If you're going through it, you're not alone. Every human being faces a deep despair in the soul. And the way to get rid of that is to find your purpose, right? But once we find our purpose, what we want to talk about today, as we move into the future, we're talking about the future, what tomorrow is all about. But from a perspective that I'm going to lay out right now. So once we have our purpose, which we won't get into today, then we have to prepare, the preparation. And this idea of life is all about, 99% of life is about preparation. If we look at, we talked about this before, if we look at the great performers like Usain Bolt, who became this super Olympian and champion, broke all the records of the Olympics. His preparation years were over 20 years that he was running and preparing. Over a decade he prepared actually for the Olympics, maybe more. And it took him 8-point-something seconds, 9 seconds, to crush all the records. The preparation was way more than the performance. And so with everything, you want to learn to play music. I'm learning to play the guitar. I don't practice enough, but I need to practice more. Preparation is key. Preparation is practice. Preparation and practice. Preparation and practice. That's what life is all about. Preparation and practice. Once you find your purpose, you got to spend the time, invest in yourself, and prepare and practice, and prepare and practice. Prepare and practice. Most of life is like that. Let me tell you something. Let's say the most perfect, who is the most perfect person you think walked the face of the earth in history? For me, that person is Jesus Christ, who walked the face of the earth and became like the most perfect being ever, human being ever, or person ever, right? And when we look at him, when we look at Jesus, you look at all the biblical figures, you look at all the Olympians, you look at all the professors who became doctors, and they have their doctorates, is what I mean, and they're teaching thousands of people in university. Those are the big Ivy League universities like Cambridge and Oxford and all the big universities. I don't even remember half of them, but you know what I mean. Yale and all those places. The people who taught Bill Clinton, the people the professors who taught Obama, and all the greats of the earth. These people, they had to spend so many years preparing before they could step out into the world and do what they want. Jesus Christ spent 30 years in preparation. If we look at him, people, the Son of God, and there he is, 30 years of preparation. There's a lesson in that. There is instruction for our life in that, but we don't get that. We want performance. We want to say, let's take action today and we see results today. No. Life is, you plant a seed, and you nurture it, cultivate it, and one day it's going to bear fruit. And you got to believe and have faith that that tree is not barren, that it will bear fruit, right? But because you put in the work, you cultivate it, you fertilize it. Life, I'm using the tree as a metaphor of life. So today what we want to get, so once you have a purpose, you spend most of your life in preparation and in practice, right? You got to really practice. You want to be a master at something, you want to be an expert at something, you have to put in the effort and the intention in practicing and preparing. That is absolutely crucial. You must go through that phase, which means, like Alexis Kaufman, when she was on the show a couple of days ago, she said something, that we are not who we are now. We won't be the same person 2-3 years from now. Who we were 3 years ago, we were not the same person we are today, because we keep evolving and developing and growing, and we become different people. So somebody who knew you, say 3 years ago, and they encounter you today, now a lot of people remain kind of the same, but there was growth. There was some kind of maturity. There was a subtle difference even. But for most people, the people who take self-development seriously, there's a big change. There's a big transformation. Now you got to get to know that person all over again, right? That's how life is. So purpose is very, very important. We want to emphasize that, underline it, bold it. Purpose. You've got to live for purpose, with intention and with effort, and with determination, and with commitment, and with energy, and with passion. Once you have that purpose lined up, and you're determined to walk that road no matter what, because you know that's what your heart is aligning with, then the next step is preparation. You got to keep preparing, and that's what we're going to talk about today in terms of the future. Because what you're preparing for, okay, here's a key question. You don't just live existentially. What are we preparing for? We're preparing for our moment on the stage of life. Remember, Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, and we but players or performers on that stage. And we have a moment of time. We don't have all the stage to ourselves, because the world has 8 billion people. Not everybody, unfortunately, is very, very sad that not everybody in the world sets out for self-development, for self-care, and for self-expression, which is performance, right? How do you perform in life? What message are you giving to the world, and how are you delivering that message? That is the performance. And the performance of your life on the world stage, on the internet, in your community, could be on your street, could be with your family. Although I would tend to think you got to broaden your community and your horizon, right? Don't focus on a small thing. Go big, because now we can. We have the internet, right? We have the internet, and it's a gift. It's free. It's like the air we breathe. I mean, you pay Wi-Fi and all that, but they're moving to make the internet free, like the big companies, right? And even the US government and different places, the EU and all that. But so preparation is absolutely key, which we'll talk about today. But the reason, I just want to put this in there, the reason that we prepare, the reason that we spend all this time and practice and prepare, is that our moment for performance, our moment when we're in the spotlight, when we're in the middle of the stage of life, when we're at a certain age and life demands of us something that we have to dig deep inside of us and say, I have what it takes, and I'm going to put out my performance there, right? We watch TV, we watch movies, we entertain ourselves to see people perform. That's the only thing entertainment is. It's performance. The actors, the musicians, comedians, whoever it is, sports people, they're all in a performance. And you know, a basketball game might last 90 minutes, I think. I'm not sure. I'm not a basketball fan. Or a baseball game, I'm a cricket fan, so I know it lasts 5 days. But my point is, the time the players, the experts, the sport, the talented, well-honed athletes and sports people spend on the field performing to entertain millions of people is nothing, is minuscule compared to the time they spent in preparation and practice over and over and over again. Michael Jordan talks about it, everybody. Tiger Woods, Serena Williams, you name them, they talk about it. How preparation is key. Why am I saying this now, today, when we're supposed to be talking about the future, which it's what we're moving into. The reason I want to mention that we got to live purposefully and we have to prepare for our time of performance when we have to rise to the occasion and be who we are created to be, even if it's a short time. Even Jesus Christ prepared for 30 years, and his performance, his ministry, so to speak, was only 3 years before they hung him on the cross, right? Mandela prepared for 28 years. He was in prison. And when he came out of prison, he became president of South Africa for 1 term. And then he became a global figure. Organized the Elders, which is an organization that is kind of overseeing the world and where it's going. All these great figures, big achievers, the big performers in life, the geniuses, the originators, the visionaries, the key aspect of their life, the key time span of their life, the most years they spent in preparation. in practicing. You got to become a master. You got to become an expert. You got to become a visionary. You got to become an originator. That's the people we are moving into surrounding ourselves with. And those are the people who are shaking and making this world what it is. 8 billion people on the planet, my friend, and most people don't have any impact, any influence, any power. We say to them, oh, you have power as a voter. You go vote for the politician. I have politician friends. But I will tell you this, once the politician gets into the office, you're not seeing that politician knocking on your door anymore, asking you, you voted for me a year ago, how am I performing? How am I doing? They don't even send you a survey and say, what do you want me to go to parliament to do? They don't do that. There you go for politicians. It's human nature. You can't blame the politicians. It's human nature, right? They want something, they grab something, they get it from you as a voter, and you become powerless after. They do whatever they want, right? And I'm not knocking anybody, I'm not criticizing, I'm just making a point. So why am I talking about preparation? I really want to drive home the idea of preparation. That preparation is the most valuable and the key thing in life, right? Preparation and practice. That's what it takes. It takes hours, it takes days, it takes years and years and decades for you to practice and practice and practice to become who you're supposed to be as a human being in this world, in this age, in this generation. So the reason I'm saying that is this. We are moving into a new future, and what we are setting out to do as an enterprise, as a company, not only in a talk show, but our entire operation is setting out to make a difference where we don't see anybody else making that difference. And the difference we're setting out to make is this, that we awake, that we sensitize, and we bring to the consciousness of anybody who would listen to us, of anybody who would listen to us. No matter who listens to the show or doesn't listen to it, or listen to the recording after the live is over. What we are setting out to do, without compromise, without like giving up, you know what I mean? Without flexing on our goal and our mission, we're setting out to play that role in bringing people to attention, to say the future is rushing at us and we better be prepared. We better practice for that future that is coming to us. That's why I'm emphasizing the aspect of life that is preparation, that is practice. It is the key thing that we need to deal with today. As we face a world that might very well see COVID, the Omicron variant, or they say a new variant is coming after that, I don't know. But even as we prepare for a world that could shut down, even if it doesn't shut down, America and Canada and Europe and everywhere, they're already closing borders, or actually restricting borders, which is the first step towards closing the borders again. Whatever is going on with all that, let's use the time that we have to prepare and to practice for the future that is coming. Because tomorrow is important. Whatever is going on today I came to the office and the studio, spend the entire day doing work on the computer and all that. But the day is over. Now it's night, right? And so your day today comes and it goes. But tomorrow is coming, and we gotta prepare for tomorrow. So whatever is going on with coronavirus, whatever is going on with the Omicron variant, or any new variant that is coming, whatever is going on in the borders, or whatever is going on in society with business and shutting down and this and that, whatever it is, let's take the time to proactively live, to set out to practice and to prepare for that future that is coming to us. Now, a lot of people don't realize that the future, we had, when COVID started, a lot of people were saying the norm would return, the normal would return. Well, I don't think anybody's saying that anymore. Certain phrases that started with COVID, we don't even say anymore, like the return of normal or social distancing even, right? Those phrases we don't hear them anymore. They were once household phrases everywhere in the world. But now it's a different time. So what are we preparing for? That's what today's show is all about. What are we preparing for? What kind of future are we moving into? So before I get into excuse me, what I need water again. It's way over there. Before I get into what kind of future we're moving into, because here's the thing, you can't prepare, you can't practice for you don't know what for, right? If you don't know what that future is that is coming towards us, that is impacting the world, that is causing tremendous changes and transformation, deep foundational transformation. These things are happening, like we said yesterday, below the surface. People don't see them. Right in my city here on the main street, they're digging up the street. And a lot of people are saying, why would they do that? Even at Christmas time, which is a valid point. Why would you do it at Christmas time? The city, I don't know, the city councilors, but, or engineers or whoever are doing those things. But the reason they're doing that is because they're going below the foundation of this road. They're digging up the whole thing to lay new cables and prepare for the future, right? And maybe change pipes and that kind of thing. But the underground surface, nobody sees. All they see is construction stuff everywhere and the road blocked off and you can't go through certain lanes and all that. But people need to realize that below the surface a lot is going on. A lot is going on. And the reason that underground stuff is happening, disruption and laying of new stuff, is because the powers that be, they know what the future is going to be. For us, for a lot of people who just exist day to day and we live our life and we say, oh, I want to be normal, I want to have my job, I want to pay my bills, I want to go home and watch TV and we can go party at a club or whatever we do, right? Or go to my cottage or whatever. We live without considering that human society is never static. We are constantly changing. And we got to prepare for the new change that is happening, the new change that is coming. And because a lot of people haven't done the work to know what we're moving into, what we're coming out of, people don't really care because the past is over and done with. But what we're moving into is vitally important for us to know what we're moving into so we can prepare for it, so we can practice to live in that new world, right? And that's what the difference we want to make with you. Nobody else is doing this work out there that we know of to say this is the future that is coming and let's prepare you for it. Let us together practice for that future, right? That is a very, very important thing, a very, very important structure to have in life today, even as we wait for coronavirus to do its thing and move on, right? To put it that way. What are we moving into? Before I do that, let me make a different point. So the point that I just made was that we live with purpose, and once we have a purpose and we settle on the road to the designed life and the authoring our future, then we live a life of practicing. We live a life of preparation for down the road when we're on the stage of life and our performance comes up. And we got to go on that stage and perform and wow the world, wow our audience. I mean, these things that I'm talking about on a 1 hour live show, we need to delve more into it, right? It's like the surface stuff we're dealing with. But when I talk about performance, I'm talking about anything. Any crisis shows up, you must be good enough to deal with it. An opportunity comes along, you're prepared to grab that opportunity and make use of it. That's what I mean by performance. When I say performance, I mean you get to the summit of your life, to the optimal potential of your of being a human being, that you rise to the occasion. You don't like there's a famous thing on Instagram, I think, where Obama is in this train and he's standing there and there's a guy sitting on the seat of the train and he's fast asleep. And there's a text thing, I don't know what you call it, a slogan or whatever, that says something to the effect that some people miss their opportunity, right? Because here's Obama, back then he was president, so the most powerful man in the world, and the guy sleeping. When he could have said hi, he could have gotten a picture and blew up his profile online and all those things, I'm just using that as an example, that we must prepare for the performance of our life, that when opportunities show up, and when we are presented with that stage of life that Shakespeare talked about, that we are ready to step up. We are ready to run the race. When Usain Bolt ended up with the Olympics, he hits that track, he must be ready for that 9-second or 8-second performance. And so with everybody who achieved greatness in human society, right? So we talked about that, purpose and preparation and practice, and then performance, right? We won't get deep into those things because that's not our point tonight. This is our point tonight, which is the kind of future that we're going into. Remember, all month on the Qualpin Live show, we're talking about, and all the information is on the screen, what we're about, what my name is, everything is there. We should put our website address. I need to do that next time, tomorrow. I have to remember to add it. But anyway, here is something I want to say before we go into what kind of future is coming, because that is important. So stay on the show, bring your people to listen to this thing, because you've got to prepare for tomorrow or you're going to be left behind. Tomorrow is a different world. It's a totally different world than today is, than the past was. Even for younger people, we're moving into a new society, a new paradigm, a new humanity. And we're going to spend some time talking about that tonight and then continue it tomorrow. But before I do that, let me say this. Just as we talked about purpose, having a purpose, and then preparing and practicing for your performance in life, and one day we'll explain what all that means in depth. Just like that, we have to know the process. That's what I'm looking for, the word. The process of how human society is moving, looking back at history. When we look back at history, we see a kind of pattern, we see a kind of I just had the word and I forget it. But pattern is what I'm looking for. Throughout history, we saw a certain pattern of the process. That's the word I'm using. The process that we're moving into is the same process that happened throughout human history. And if we look at human history and we delve into the fundamental shifts within society when one age moved into another age. So this is what I want to talk about before we move into what kind of future is coming. We got to recognize, we don't see this because it's it doesn't happen very, very often, and it doesn't happen very, very fast. It's a slow process. And what I'm talking about is the ages that mankind has gone through. The whole human family. We had the Ice Age and the Bronze Age and Iron Age and Stone Age and all those ages that mankind has, had to traverse over the period of ancient history. But even in modern times, we have different ages. And this is an important point, so please pay attention to me before we go into the future. There was, let's say, in the Egyptian Empire and even the Greek Empire. This is why a lot of Greeks wrote about the gods. Like paganism was huge in Egypt and in the Greek Empire, which succeeded the Egyptian Empire. So what succeeded the Egyptian Empire was the Greek Empire. And in the Greek Empire, and even the Persian Empire, which succeeded the Greek Empire, the whole period from the Egyptian Empire, which lasted maybe 1,000 years, and then the Greek Empire, maybe, I don't know, a few hundred years, and then you had the Persian Empire, right? All those empires, for that whole span of human society, what we had was a theological age. What I mean by theological age, it was all about theology. The entire Egyptian Empire, Greek Empire, and Persian Empire, and it includes the time of Israel when they became a nation and all that, right? Everybody looked to the heavens. Everybody thought mankind was subjected to divine beings. And if you read the great Greek literature that came out from that time, and even if you look at the Egyptian drawings and caves and all that, and if you listen to the Persian writers of that time, you would see that they were very, we call it paganism, but they were very engaged with the heavenly bodies, right? Even to the point of when Islam was founded 700 years ago, 700 something years ago, it had a lot to do with the moon and the movement of the heavenly bodies, right? And the stars and all that. So mankind for a long time, for a very, very long time, went through a period which is called the theological age. Now after the theological age, we kind of graduated into, different ages. So the Romans kind of started being more human-centered, man-centered, that we should be more autonomous and not depend on, divine beings or gods and these things that the Greeks used to talk about. So the Romans started practicing a more natural way of life, not a supernatural way of life. The superstition wasn't so much. Religiosity wasn't so much. People weren't so theological. So a new age came into being with the Romans, which we might call the age of man. But then we went through from there, and the British Empire. I'm just going to rush this through. We went through different ages. There was the Romantic period, the Enlightenment, the Dark Age, all those things. We went through different ages till we came to a point, this was always so, but when the British Empire took over from the Roman Empire, which the Roman Empire lasted for maybe 1,000 years, and then the British took over to ruling the world is what I mean. But other European countries like the Dutch and the Portuguese and the Spanish and the French, but the British was the most entrenched power that spanned the earth. They said the sun never set on the British Empire, right? It spanned the globe. And what the British Empire did was they brought in a new age, which started from around, they started with a book actually, and we talked about this before, Adam Smith's book, The Wealth of Nations. And what Adam Smith said in his book was that, to put it very simple, man could specialize. One man didn't have to make an entire machine or an entire plow, or you could specialize, and one person could make the tail end of the plow. I don't know how plows were made back then with wood and all that, but specialization is what he really invented and originated. And of course Henry Ford picked up on that specialization idea and implemented it in his plant, Ford Motor Company in the United States, and was able to develop the assembly line, which became historical, and it produced automobiles, and from that we had and I'm rushing through this, right? You got to consider the development, the invention of electricity, the invention by Alexander Graham Bell of the telephone. All these things happened about 100 years ago. The motor car replaced horses and buggies. The telephone replaced the telegraph, and we saw a huge development happen about 100 years ago, but it started in the late 1700s, when America became independent, from Britain, and declared their independence, when the French declared liberty and equality and all that. It all happened around in the late 1700s, but by the 1800s, mankind started moving in a different age, which was never done before in human society. That new age, and it was a new age. Every age is a new age. People freak out and say, when George Bush talked about the new age in 1992, everybody was freaking out, rightfully, that globalization is coming and it's not good and blah blah blah. And people still do that. But every age is a new age, right? It replaces the old, so it becomes a new age. So in the 1800s, and especially, of course, it was a very slow development. It took nearly 100 years for this age that we're now coming out of to develop and to change humanity. And I'm making a point here, so please bear with me. Now, before the industrial age, so before the 19th century, which is 1800s, of course, the world had, for the whole of British rule up to that point, up to up to World War I and World War II, actually, as recent as then, what the world had was an age of monarchies, of royalty, of royal families ruling from. In Russia, you had the Tsar, you had Holland, the Netherlands, right? France, England, Britain, all over Europe, all over Africa, you had tribal chiefs who were kings ruling villages and societies. And then you had, in India, you had the kings are also ruling feudal
societies which eventually merged and became England, when Britain conquered the whole Indus Valley. In China, you had kings all over the world, even the Indians who lived, well, not the natives, the indigenous people who lived in South America, the Indus, what do you call them? I forget. In Mexico and all that, they all had kings, right? The Incas and those people, they all had kings. So we had like maybe monarchies go way back to the Egyptians, right? But the age of monarchy, of the royalties ruling, became feudalism, where the royalty would own not the state, and we didn't say that the head of the king, like they said in Egypt and even in Greek and some parts of the Roman Empire, they said Caesar was the kind of representation of God, and you had to bow down to him or worship him, and this was common with the pharaohs in Egypt. During the British Empire, that didn't happen, right? We had kings and queens and lords, and what they did, they didn't say we're divine beings. That era was over, that age was over. What they said was, you worship, sorry, they didn't say worship them. They said, we're going to take over all the land. All the land. They took over the land. Only lords and kings and queens and royalty, people with titles, endowed by parliament, and the king would sign it, could own land. And they owned vast tracts of land. Royal families from Europe, all over the place. And they would rent that land or lease it to the ordinary common man, common people who were living in excruciating poverty. And they gave leaseholds and rental land to these people. And the only thing the human being could do, the average person, common people, the only thing they could do, back then women had no rights. Women couldn't vote. Women only started voting, like in Canada, in 1960 or something like that. And in much of the world, by the end of World War II, women couldn't even vote. They had zero rights, right? And so society was in this state. Can you imagine that kind of society from where we're standing here today? We can't imagine it. It's a different world, completely different age, right? So you have these feudal lords who owned vast tracts of land, and we see this in literature. We see it a lot. Let me see the time if I want. No, we're good. We see it in Tolstoy's book in Russia, his books, his novels, how the royalty controlled society and ordinary men, and Dostoevsky's work as well, and literature throughout, even with Dickens from England, in how London was. We see the poverty, we see what common men and women had to go through. And because the average person didn't have rights, you had to work the land. Farmers wake up whatever time, you didn't have fancy clothes, you didn't have fashion, you didn't have car, it was a life of destitution. And that went on. Humanity lived like that. Slaves were there, servants were there, like the caste system that still exists in India. That was the world, where you had a whole section of society which had to bow literally and subject themselves to lords and kings and queens and people who control the land, right? And they would squeeze these peasants for as much as they could out of the farming community. And people lived agrarian life, agricultural life. They would plant and they would have their livestock and bring it to market on Sunday and all that kind of thing. And then Christianity made a lot of impact, right? And God's consciousness, conscience, good conscience to start seeing people as people and others throwaways, right? But so when Henry Ford did this thing with his motor company out of Adam Smith's book, so the industrial age was born. And this is the point I want to make, that humanity has gone through age after age after age after age, different age, and we don't know what the age, not that we don't know, but we don't realize, it doesn't impact us with any real impact how the previous age was. Like, we have no idea what feudalism was, but our foreparents know that. When they had to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go out there and work the farm, and go to market on Sunday and bring their livestock and bring their milk and bring their eggs and bring their vegetable and fruit from their farms and try to sell it for meager money so they could improve their lifestyle just a little bit, and it went on for decades and decades and decades like that. Of course, then World War I happened, World War II happened, and we saw massive change, right, with the United Nations instituting human rights and all those things. But yet, what replaced the feudal age was the industrial age, which is where we're coming to now, right now, to my point, right? It's long-winded, but trust me, these things are important for us to put into people's consciousness, so they know the road of life, they know the process of life, what it entails, how to live, right? Because if you have a sensitivity towards these things, that heat is on, and I hope you're not hearing the sound of the heat or not. And you really need one of the guys here to help me with this kind of thing, because I keep the heat on, and its microphone is so sensitive I'm scared it will pick up the droning background sound and it distort the audio again, like happens so often. But anyway, let's get back to our point. So we moved into the industrial age, and of course the people got rights, and people could vote, and people could pay taxes, and they could take a mortgage, and they could own a big house, and they could live like the kings and queens of old. You sleep in a king-size bed or a queen-size bed, whichever bed you sleep in, and you buy fancy furniture, and you wear fashion, and you drive a nice car. And so living standard after World War II really, really, really escalated, really immensely improved globally, even now in China and Africa and India, which even up to the 90s was you see pictures on TV with starving children and all that. Now we don't see that. All those countries, the whole of the Pacific Rim, the whole Asia and South America as well. Gross poverty is gone. So we've seen tremendous progress over the past, say, 60, 70 years after World War II. But that happened because of industrialization. So we lived in an industrial age, which is now over 100 years old. And that industrial age, it still made man subjected to the economic mandate, the economic order of society, the industrialization of society. You still had to go to offices and factories, and you still had the employer who was kind of, I'm up there, and the employee who was, oh yeah, please keep me my job, and raise my wage by 25 cents an hour, or 10 cents an hour, whatever it is. And we still had this. So the industrial age was where man still had we weren't free enough yet, right? We weren't empowered enough yet. And so the people who built society became the billionaires, became the multimillionaires, became the rich. And the rich became one set of people, and the poor became one set of people, and politicians all over the world started talking about three classes of humans: the poor, the rich, and the middle class. And everybody was after the middle class to say, the middle class, like even Biden's recent election was all about the middle class. And now he talks a lot about the middle class, President Biden in the United States. So we divided society into three. The poor is getting poorer, the rich is getting richer, and the middle class is in the middle somewhere. And that's who the politicians and the society caters for. They work, they pay taxes, they buy stuff, they live this consumerist lifestyle. Industrial age, right? Now let's get to the point. After all that, my friends, so we made 2 points today. Let me quickly go over that. We talked about living with purpose and preparing for the future, because our time for the future, in the future, sometime along that road, we would be called to step up and perform in life, right? To grab hold of the opportunity, to give our, our purpose for living, to express it, to self-express it to the world, or to people around us, even if it's a small thing. When I say performance in life, I mean at some point in your life, you become a dad, you become a mom if you're a woman, of course. You become a figure of leadership and influence over somebody, maybe your children, maybe your grandchildren, whoever it is. That's your performance. What impact you're having on whatever society, whatever community around you. And we got to prepare for that. And then, so we talked about that, and then we went into the different ages that man has had to deal with, starting way back with the Ice Age and all those ages, bronze and iron and all that, and then coming through to more modern times like the Enlightenment and the Romantic period and the Dark Ages and all those things. And then of course we came through the feudal age into industrial age. Now we're on the tail end of the industrial age right now. We're on the tail end of it. The industrial age is actually collapsing. All the disruptions that are happening, the whole impact of COVID is just like happened with the feudalism when World War II came, and there was this big virus thing going on back then as well, where people had to wear a mask and they had to do social distancing. Back in 2018, 2019, 2020, I think up to 2021, there was the Black Plague, there was the Spanish flu, there were all those things on World War I. And all those things changed society from the feudal age. The Habsburg Empire collapsed. That's how fundamental the shift was. From the feudal age of monarchies and royalties ruling society and peasants having to, the rest of society being peasants working the land. That shift happened because of World War I and the plague that happened then and the pandemic and all those things. And then we got into the industrial age, right? So you got to realize that when society is changing from one age to the next, there's huge disruption. It's like an earthquake. There's a shift, there's a seismic shift in the very foundations of society, and that's what we got to prepare for. That's why we need to prepare it. I went through all that today to emphasize to people that we're not just talking slogans here. We're not just saying, oh, the future is coming and prepare for it. No, it's much more than that. It's much deeper than that. It's a serious, serious thing. And so now that the industrial age is coming to an end and COVID is speeding things up, this is why the United Nations has and is working to implement by 2025. So starting next year, you're going to see a ramping up of this because we're becoming desperate that it's not really happening fast enough in countries all over the world, globally. The SDGs, which is the Sustainable Development Goal, they have to implement that because the end of the industrial age is here and the new age is starting. And that's what we're going to end the show on what that new age is. So pay attention, listen, right? The second thing that is going on in the World Economic Forum is implementing, as you know, the Great Reset. So the World Economic Forum is working to implement the Great Reset, which President Biden has tapped into with his 3.4, 3.5, 3.8, 3.9, whatever it is, $1 trillion in social programs and infrastructure programs in the United States. That's the Great Reset. And it's happening in the US, but it has to happen globally. And you saw in the US during the Trump presidency, when over 600,000 people died from COVID, how disruptive the society became. It set the stage for Biden coming into power and bringing about this huge program that is historical, that America has never seen before. Imagine that. Nearly $4 trillion pouring into the economy in the United States. That is the Great Reset at work in the US. And the Sustainable Development Goals, we still haven't touched that yet. We haven't gone anywhere with it yet. So that has to happen. And then of course, clean climate mandate. So those three things they are happening now, and they symbolize the end of the industrial age. So Sustainable Development Goals, check out those 19 goals online if you really want to look into it. The Great Reset and Clean Climate Mandate from COP26. So these organizations, which are global organizations, are mandating the local governments, the countries and cities and provinces that you have to implement these things. If you don't implement these things, the global society would reject that country. They would become pariah in the international order. So these things have to happen, and it all points to the end of the industrial age. Now, this is where we're sitting. We're sitting on the cusp of the end of the industrial age, and the new age, the new world that we are moving into, what is it? That's what we want to really drive home today, and we put it at the end of the show because the end of things emphasize, right? When you say something at the end, like writing a book, the end is really emphasis. Or when you write a sentence or a paragraph, the ending is this is literature. But anyway, the reason we put it here is that you would remember it. which is what age are we moving into, and how do we prepare for that new age? So the industrial age is over. Everybody who says let's go back to normal, or they're nostalgic for clubbing and spending their time at the office and coming home and watching TV, those days are over. I'm sorry to say, but the status quo has to get used to that idea that those days are over. We're no longer in that world. We're in a different world. And the world that we're moving into, what world is that? So we're moving out of the industrial age, just like happened when we moved out of the feudal age into the industrial age with World War I and all that plague happening. Same thing is going on now, and we're moving into the age of technology. We're moving it, so there are several factors involved in the new age that we're stepping into. We're moving into the age of technology, but we're also moving into the age of knowledge. So knowledge and technology are fusing, and so when you listen to those two words, when you encounter those two words, technology and knowledge, they're profound words. They're words that we never had before in human history. Throughout all of human history, at no point did we have the technology that we have today. At no point did human society have the knowledge that we have today. And the knowledge is so profound that which is why we are doing what we're doing, this show and our whole company, because the individual is empowered. The individual is now so empowered, never in human history before. In none of the ages past has the personal individual been so empowered as today. And we're setting out to build an enterprise, a global platform on this idea that the individual is empowered. That in your message to the world, in your purpose, if you prepare well enough, and you go out there and you do your performance, it could be on a YouTube channel, it could be on Instagram, it could be on Facebook, like so many people are doing. And they're TikTok, how many people are becoming famous? But I'm not talking about fame and fortune. I'm talking about living the reason we exist as human beings. Why are we here? We're here for some reason. And let's go into self-expression and performance, right? The only way we could do that, the only way we could prepare for it, the only way we could practice for this new future is if we know what that future is, right? Is if we know what kind of future are we moving into. There were people when feudalism was ending in World War I, when you had empires collapsing all over the world. You had the Habsburg Empire, Hungary-Austria Empire, ruled by the Habsburg family, completely collapsed during World War I and World War II. Fundamental shifts are happening, and the same thing is going on now. If there were people who had insight into seeing that the industrial age was coming, which Henry Ford did, and industrialists like Andrew Carnegie, who became the richest man by the 1920s in the world and built public libraries in every country on the face of the earth. Andrew Carnegie did that because he was as rich. Now we say Bill Gates and Bezos and Musk and stuff are the richest people in the world. You had one rich man in the world. The richest was Andrew Carnegie back in the 1920s, 1930s, and he built public libraries all over the world with his money. Those guys were able to see that feudalism, monarchies were collapsing and the age was ending and a new age was coming into being, which is, the industrial age. And they built factories. In fact, Andrew Carnegie got rich because he realized this new age, industrial age, would need sand and stone and it would need steel to build factories, to build new buildings, to convert farmlands into offices and factories. And he became rich on steel. Aluminum and stuff, he went to countries with aluminum mining and start developing aluminum products, even utensils for and like knives and forks and stuff for people to eat with. Aluminum plates and pots. This guy developed this kind of thing because he saw the industrial age was coming. The same with Henry Ford and all the great industrialists who developed that age. The reason I'm saying all that is to say this: if we standing on the cusp of the end of one age, and we're looking to, and we're preparing, and we're practicing for the new age that is on not only on our doorstep, but inside the house. It's there, it's on our footstep, on our toes, I mean. It's right there and it's rushing towards us. The age of technology and the age of knowledge and the age of individual empowerment. If we know that, we would prepare and move into that future, and we would not become victims of this new world. And all the people who are protesting and marching on the street and freaking out about COVID, and they have no clue the opportunity that is awaiting us as we move out into this new world, the world of technology. So you have a whole slew of people on the internet, and all the millionaires, even the rap musicians and the hip hop people like Kanye West and all of them, they're buying into NFTs and cryptocurrency, and they're building new technologies. Even Facebook became Zuckerberg realized that Facebook itself would fall apart because the age is ending and the new age is coming, if he didn't reinvent this platform. And so he converted Facebook into what is known now as the metaverse, but what is still in the stage of being rolled out. And all the companies are now working on this. Phones would go away very, very soon. We would all have these glasses, right? VR and AR. Now, if you're with us, if you're part of us, if you listen to this show and watch this show, our responsibility is to share with you what we have discovered. And what we have discovered is that the industrial age is coming to an end, and what is replacing it, as soon as it's already happening, is the technology age, the knowledge age, and the age of individual empowerment. That is the future, and we must prepare for it. We must practice for it. We must know what role we're going to play in the world of technology. We might not build a Twitter platform or TikTok. We might not do those big things. But how can we prepare for that new world that is rushing? It's coming so fast to us. How can we prepare to own our house through NFTs? How can we prepare to take the money that is in our bank account and it becomes cryptocurrency? How do we prepare for those things? We got to prepare for the new society, and that's our role. Our role is to bring you on board with that, to sensitize people, to bring an awareness and a consciousness that this world is coming to an end in terms of the industrial age and the new age of technology, knowledge, and individual empowerment, which is the exciting thing. The exciting thing is that you are already enormously empowered. But because we're coming out of an age where people say, go get an education, go to college, go get a job, forget entrepreneurship, it's too risky, you would end up on the street and blah, blah, blah. We still have that fear in us that we should seek the little things in life. We should seek after security. First of all, we should survive. We should seek to survive, right? That's the mentality people have today. Forget abundance, because we got to survive. And then once you start surviving, whatever level you're surviving at, you got to maintain it, sustain that survival level. The wage earner, the salaried people, that's what they're doing. They're surviving, paying their bills, some of them living paycheck to paycheck. Still, right? Because that age is dying, but it's not totally dead yet. Instead of people thinking, I'm going to master something, I'm going to be an expert at what I'm good at my passion, and I'm going to become like the sports people of the world. I'm going to become like the movie people of the world, the authors of books of the world, who live by contract. They contract their talents and their skills, performers and musicians. They sign with labels and they sign contracts for royalties and membership fees and subscription. That's the world we've got to move into. If you're an accountant, if you're a let me see how much time we have time. If you're an accountant or you're a whatever field you're in, you're a writer, whatever it is. Well, the artistic community is coming into its own. Creators, Facebook now is developing a whole, and YouTube and all of them, they're developing a whole platform for creators, musicians, or writers, and dancers, and performers, right? Who would, of course, populate their new platforms with content, engaging content, but they would also pay the creators on a contract basis, based on how good you are and all that, right? But the average human being who has a job and goes out there and think, oh, we're gonna still have the normal way. Once COVID is over, society is open back up, then we're gonna go back to normal. And a lot of people actually believe this. It's shocking. Our people, we want to bring you on our journey and say to you, the work that we're doing, just like Andrew Carnegie back in the early stage of the industrial age, and Henry Ford and all those guys who saw the future coming and they jumped on the bandwagon. The same thing with the technology companies today, out of Silicon Valley and India and China and Toronto and all over the place. A lot of people who are starting up technology enterprises and knowledge enterprises, they see the future and they're jumping on the bandwagon. But what percentage of that, those people who are achieving fantastic wealth and abundance, the abundance lifestyle, and they're living their dream, what percentage of those people represent humanity? Maybe 10%, not even 10%. Not even. Over 90% of humanity still live like they have no power. The technology is a mystery. The future is murky. We can't shape it, we can't write it, we can't design it. That's the belief in a lot of people. And we want to change that. We really, really want to change that. We want to be, because nobody else is doing it, and we wish other people would start doing this work, right? Because we want to step out there and make a difference for you and for everybody who would come on board and listen to us and tolerate us with an hour-long show, to when tomorrow arrives, when a new future sets in, you and I, we must not be victims of it, of that new world. We must be masters of it. We must be the leaders. We must come in on the ground floor and set the new tone, open up new avenues, create new paths for life to be easier for as many people in the world as we could impact, right? Yeah, it's a tall order, and I know the show kind of might sound a bit intense and heavy and in-depth, but that's what it is, right? We're a book company. We go for the intense and the heavy and the in-depth, and we know there are thinkers and originators and visionaries who resonate with us and they align with us, and those are the people we speak to. If we touch your heart, if you feel that fire burning in you, if you feel that passion rising up in you when we talk to you, connect with us. Send an email. You can find us online, Qualped, Google Qualped, or go on any social media platform and search for Qualped and you'll find us, right? So take care, thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is the last show for the week before the weekend. But this week has been fun. You know, I think I've enjoyed the week and didn't get maybe as much done as I had some big meetings anyway. But it's good. It's all good. It's all good, right? So enjoy your evening, and we shall see you tomorrow. All right. Take care. Bye bye.